Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are here in the Cherokee Batting Range podcast studio getting ready to record episode number 240. Got a really good show lined up for you today where I'm going to be able to say, I told you so. We'll get into that in a second. First, let's talk about the Anderson Bat Company.
Everything Fast Pitch is very proud to have Anderson Bat Company as our presenting sponsor. Anderson Bat Company is using the latest and greatest bat technology to corner the market in the fast pitch world. They have the -9 Rocket Tech, the -10 Carbon, and the -11 Carbon Light. Anderson Bat Company is using this technology to put a high-performing bat in the hands of hitters that really know the difference between a good bat and a great bat. We're also working with Anderson to provide a discount for all of our listeners. Go to the Anderson Bat Company website and order your bats. Use the EFP20 discount, which is for everything fast pitch, and you'll get a 20% discount.
And again, please make sure you take advantage of that EFP20 discount. It's a great way for you to save an additional 20%. Also support the podcast. Also, if you want to support us, become a patron. Please go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. $5, $10, or $20 a month. We've got a great group of patrons that have supported us and kept this thing going for years now, but we are still in that barely breaking even point. 1 month we're over, 1 month we're under. We're just right there. We've had enough months now where we're sneaking on the right side of it that we certainly have the optimism moving forward. If you're in a position where you can, if you see value in what we're doing, please consider becoming a patron. Go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. So Don, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about being more aware of strategic coaching decisions, making sure that we were thinking about all that mattered was winning the game. Well, I watched a game, and this is one of those reasons why this whole discussion to me is so hard and challenging and frustrating and heartbreaking and all this stuff at the same time. So I watched Texas A&M Super Regionals against Texas. So game one, Texas A&M comes out there rolling. They knock off the number 1 seed, have a chance to have the upset of all upsets, the 16 seed beating the number 1 seed. Well, game 2 rolls around, and Texas A&M is still rolling. They're up by 4 runs.
That first game was kind of magic. They beat up on them, right?
Yeah, but the second game, it's magical. They're up by 4 runs in the 6th inning. So Texas A&M is on defense. Texas has, I believe, 1 out in the inning, and they've got runners are at first and third. Ground ball gets hit to the third baseman. She fields a pretty tricky ball and throws the ball home where there is no force out.
Right.
So the runner, trying super hard to be tricky and deceptive, throws in her slide. The catcher catches the ball. Originally, the umpire calls her out because it looks like she's out. But of course, in our modern game, we now have instant replay. They go to the replay. We stand around for 5 minutes and come back with, she snuck in around the tag, so now she's safe. Okay, so we were up by 4. Now we make the play at the plate. We don't get the out, so now we're up by 3. But we still only have 1 out. Now instead of 2 outs with a runner at second, we have 1 out with runners at first and second and 1 run in the books. The next girl hits a base hit to center. We're up by 3 runs with 1 out in the 6th inning. Don, where do you think that throw should probably be going?
The bases are loaded. Oh, we got to cut off the run, right?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So runners at first and second, fast runner at second, like a 3-hopper up the middle. It's one of those that if the girl has the greatest arm in the history of softball and she makes the perfect throw to the plate, she probably gets her. But she doesn't have the greatest arm in the history of softball, and she doesn't make the perfect throw. So the run scores. So now we're up by 2. But because the throw goes home with no chance of being cut.
Still only 1 out?
Still only 1 out. And now we have runners on second and third. So the tying run is now in scoring position, and we still haven't added any outs to our total. So here's my point. We could have had the second out and had 1 runner on base. But because we made
which couldn't change the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we made a questionable play, try to get the tag out at home instead of the out at first or second, we have given them extra momentum. So now we've got runners on second and third with 1 out. Base hit up the middle, 6-hopper to the center fielder. Don, where do you think the throw should go?
All the way home?
Of course it's got to go all the way home because right. Now, but here's the thing. In this situation,
it
still shouldn't have gone home because the type of ball that was hit and where the runners were and who the runners were, we had no chance to get her out at home. So now we throw home, again, a throw that's totally uncuttable. Now we have the go-ahead run.
Move up
at
to second base. Yeah.
And so now we've turned what could have been, we get out of the inning with maybe a 2 or 3 run lead to they have a chance to take the lead, which of course they do. So because of a lack of situational awareness, because of a lack of knowing that in some situations outs are way more important than runs.
When in doubt, get an out.
Right. But here's why I wanted to talk about it, because I think Tricia Ford is a great coach. I think she has done a great job at Texas A&M of turning that into a really strong program. I'm going to tell you, they should have beaten Texas. So they should have beaten the number 1 team on Texas's home field. Now, the way the game played out, A&M came back and tied it up with a miracle home run to
still
tie the game up.
a lot of fight in there.
So there's still a lot more game to be played. But here's why I want us to talk about it, because we've had this discussion. We've talked about it already with our coaches. We want to keep talking about this idea. We have to keep training our players to understand that sometimes getting an out is the only thing that matters. Sometimes keeping a runner from advancing into scoring position is the only thing that matters. There's the great scene in No Crying in Baseball scene in League of Their Own when Jimmy Dugan gets mad because the outfielder throws home and costs them a 2-run lead. That is like the absolute picture of what happened in this game. And again, really talented players, really outstanding coaches. Did they just lose their minds for an inning? Did the moment get too big? But here's my point. We need to be working on this stuff so much, so consistently, that the moment doesn't get too big. That the idea of throwing home when we've got a 2-run lead and allowing everybody else to move up so that one more hit costs us the lead is something that we have to start driving home. And there's no crying in baseball scene in a league of their own is kind of an extreme example. But here's what I think is missing. I think for so many of our players now in this world of team hopping, and if you make me mad or I get mad at you or I get frustrated, I'm going to change teams or I'm going to transfer. I think some of this stuff is not getting coached enough. We're not beating the drum enough about how important some of this stuff is. And to watch that stuff happen and to not see the kind of reaction that I think we should be seeing from other teammates, from other players on the team, from the coaching staff, whatever it is. Now, they might have beat this drum when they had their meeting after the game.
In the heat of battle, created.
But I want us to stop talking about why we shouldn't have done it after we did it and stop doing it before we do it.
I think there's a fine line, Tori, with competition levels, and some of these choices and things against different teams may have been more effective. Maybe the kids aren't quite as quick to get home in that situation, and they're used to getting them all the time, and now we're facing somebody that's a little more skilled, a little quicker, a little stronger, all those things, and it's backfiring on them. So,
right.
But to your point, you got to get the outs. You get the outs. It's simple. Sometimes we can trade outs for runs.
Right.
It doesn't look as good on the scoreboard if we only win by 1, but we won by 1 and we move on, right?
The point I'm trying to make is sometimes we're so wrapped up in making sure they don't get a run that
Right.
we create a rally.
Yeah, for sure.
So in this situation, this is the perfect situation. If anybody wants to watch it, go back and watch it. It's the 6th inning. Well, the 6th inning, if they still have one more chance to hit, well, yeah, but I'd still rather have a 2-run lead than be down by 1.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and again, so often I'm totally okay with trading an out for a run.
Yeah.
Just give me another out.
And I think, sometimes we just get so wrapped up in the idea of making sure that they don't score that we create all kinds of opportunities for them to blow us out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the 6th inning when we've got a 4-run lead. Sometimes it might be in the 1st inning when we want to stay in the game. So we give them 1 run to make sure they don't get 4 or 5.
Right.
The whole idea of a higher priority, making more of this something that we're doing with our younger players. Because here's the thing that in one way is kind of heartbreaking to me. And again, we talked about, the stuff that was drilled into our heads as young players over and over and over again. I want us to get to the point where players that have obviously tremendous talent, that have obviously achieved a lot in this game, are so well groomed and so well trained as they come up through the ranks that when they get to the college level, they all know this stuff, that they're already being trained to understand the importance of outs and the importance of keeping the other team from having a big rally, to cut off a big inning. And sometimes I think that's what's
Lost.
lost. But I
Mhm.
think your point is a good one, Don, because this kind of comes back to my one of my earlier rants, a whole different topic. Some of these players are playing on really, really outstanding, really successful travel teams as they come up. But part of the reason that they're so dominating as younger players coming up is they've got great pitching. They just out talent the other people. So to your
Yeah.
point that if they're playing an average team with a really slow runner, I can throw it home and throw her out 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Well, now all of a sudden I'm so used to doing that my mind never processes the idea that really fast runner, slow roller up the middle, it gets to me on 5 hops. They don't have that internal clock. They don't have that way of kind of measuring what's happening because they were so lucky coming up that they never needed it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden when they need it, they don't have it. So here's what I want us to do, coaches. Understand that they need it. Make sure we keep drilling these things into minds of the players that we coach to help them develop this softball IQ that we always talk about so that when they're ahead by 4 runs, the idea of throwing home for an iffy play to stay ahead by 4 is not worth the risk of what can happen, which is she's safe and we create a rally for the other team.
We're in the outs business.
Right. And for all the people that are saying, yeah, but Texas still came up with all those hits. Yeah, but tell me how much harder is it to hit with 2 outs? Tell me how much harder is it to hit when you've got 2 outs and you're the tying run at home plate versus you're hitting with all kinds of momentum with 1 out and you're the go-ahead run at home plate.
And the pitching piece of it.
Right.
The pressure.
And the pressure that we put on our pitcher.
Mhm.
So, the whole idea of understanding the situation, doing a better job with it, just struck me as being super ironic that something we talked about just a couple of weeks ago on Coach Prep was so clearly demonstrated. So for anybody that was listening to that episode thinking, you really don't know what you're talking about, we got to keep them from scoring. Watch how trying to keep them from scoring costs us a chance to be in the College World Series.
It's an ouch.
That definitely hurts. So that's going to wrap up number 240. Please make sure you support the Anderson Bat Company. Become a patron if you can. Go to patreon.com. Go to the fastpitchprep.com website. Order your Square Cuts training discs there. They're $49.95 a dozen. You also have access to the YouTube channel and the blog posts. Tons of information on our website. So make sure you reach out to us with questions, comments, ideas, and Player of the Week nominations for the Everything Fast Pitch podcast at everythingfastpitch@gmail.com and fastpitchprep@gmail.com. So for Coach Don McKinley and our producer Stan Lewis, this is Coach Torrey saying thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.